like a kind, more like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share the interest together with a similar kind. When they said John Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments and the lectures, fanboys, professional artists and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Hard NOC Life, a weekly video podcast, or kind of weekly video podcast, where we talk about nerd culture from a slightly different angle. I'm joined here by a really great panel, and today we're going to be talking about video games, or just more specifically, quote-unquote, gamer culture. Our first guest we have is Mr. Aaron Rand Freeman from TWIB, or This Week in Blackness. You could hear him be a guest on We Nerd Hard with me. He's also on the TWIB Prime Sports Ball. Hey, how you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here, N'Jaila.
Ah, yay. And I'm also very, very pleased to have the bad boy of Jeopardy, Mr. Arthur Chu.
Hey, okay, now you can
Hey,
hear my... Hi, yes.
Yeah. I'm also very excited to have and to meet Veerender Jubbal, who is the creator of Stop GamerGate 2014 hashtag. Hello, Veerender.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for creating this hashtag. And we also have another creator of a hashtag, not just a hashtag, like a movement. We have Tanya from I Need Diverse Games. Hello, Tanya, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
I guess to kick it off, I just want to hear from everybody, what does it mean to be a gamer to you? I guess we'll start off with Aaron.
I'm gonna be honest. It's always been elastic to me. Ever since I was younger, I've been having my title challenge openly for whatever reason. Like I was a guy that didn't particularly enjoy Mario Brothers. So once you start doing that in grade school, then you're on a slippery slope. So from the moment I started playing video games, I realized that the title is sort of how you understand games more so than anything anybody can tell you. Because ever since I was a little kid, gamers been a little brutal. So that's just my opinion.
Tanya.
For me, gamer's just always been something I've done. You know, I'm a little older, so I've been gaming since back in the SNES days, Sega Genesis. It's just, you know, that's been one of the things I've done to occupy my time and keep me out of trouble. So, you know, I'm that person that takes the day off for console release and takes vacation time for game release. So, you know, it's ingrained in who I am.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of those things where I kind of struggle with, do I want to identify as a gamer in the sense of playing games. I play so many games. I've been, you know, I spend a lot of time at gaming conventions. I proposed to my wife at a gaming convention. And I'm in tune with the culture in a lot of ways, but at the same time, you know, games are just a thing that you do, and a lot of times people kind of project this set of values on what it means to be a gamer that doesn't align with my values for a lot of reasons. And to me, that's a lot of what's going on right now, is people arguing about what does it mean to be a gamer, what do you need to do to be a gamer, and a lot of people are applying sort of rules to it that I don't agree with, you know.
Veerender?
I've been playing video games since I was 3 years old. They taught me to read, and I wouldn't want to do writing or journalism or anything without them. But I have issues with the whole gamer issue, and not all gamers are like this, and it's an identity that's focused on being a consumer to consume things and buy things, and some of them, such as GamerGate, think they're an actual group of marginalized people.
What does it mean to be a gamer? For me, it was very weird because it just seemed something that was like breathing, because it was so present. Like, I remember being 3 with those little Tiger handhelds, and then, you know, having the opportunity, like my dad would finally let us get a gaming system or doing the PC games. I grew up with a lot of the Sierra Entertainment point-and-click adventures. Video games are just like it was just something that I thought everybody did. It wasn't until I got to like middle school when I started talking, and I remember this quote-unquote popular girl literally just turned her desk around to not hear me talk about my nerdy crap. That was when I was like, oh, maybe not all the other girls like to play video games. But as it progressed, I just felt it's just like the gamer identity for me, it's a little weird because I don't think a lot of people identify themselves as TV watchers or
Right.
movie watchers. We're all consuming entertainment, but I guess it's one difference between, you know, somebody who likes watching movies and like a movie buff, or somebody who calls themselves a bibliophile and they just love books. So that's what I always thought gamers were to me. And like Aaron said, it was this like elastic thing where it was always moving and morphing. Because I remember when there was a PC master race that were like the elites who had all the good stuff, and then once the console wars happened, like the PC master race would talk about console gamers like we were all recently lobotomized. And then there was that other culture shift when the first-person shooter like reigned supreme on consoles, and suddenly the guy that used to shove you into a locker is playing Halo and Call of Duty with you, and it was an awkward moment. So when GamerGate started happening, I think it was something that was always bubbling, and it just bubbled over. And it's weird to say we, as gamers, kind of always had these conversations where who is part of the clique, or is it a clique? Because there's a lot of gamer identities that overlap. I have a conversation with people about first-person shooters. I'm not enamored. A lot of the times they give me motion sickness. I don't play a lot of first-person shooters, and because of that, there are people who are like, oh, well, you're not a real gamer. People throw casual gamer like a slur now, and core gamer, where it starts being a little complicated. And I know, Tanya, you said that you were like like you were gaming for so long. Do you see some of the same differences that happen? Do you think this is just an identity evolving, or do you think the bottom has fallen out?
Well, considering how things have evolved with everything going on, I think what Gamergate has accomplished is basically what Jack Thompson tried to accomplish so many years ago, that, you know, the image of gaming is tarnished. But because I love games, I'm not going to let that happen, at least as much as I can get done. Because I don't want that to be, oh, you don't really game, or, you know, I can go into a store with my partner and they will talk to him like I don't exist. He's not even a gamer. But, you know, they'll talk to him and try to press Call of Duty or the new Halo on him, and he's like, dude, chill, I'm in here with her. And I think it's just we need to work past this stereotype, because it's very clear that women do game. So, you know, it's ridiculous that we have to have this fight yet again thanks to everything going on. We have to,
Yeah.
you know, we have to scrape our way back up to the top again, if that, you know, if that makes any sense.
I would say a big part of what I've been talking about recently, stuff that's gotten me upset, is this kind of like nerd nationalism kind of thing. You know, this you know, nerd is just a descriptive term. It just means those of us who had a hard time blending in with mainstream culture for one reason or another. But the response to it being to like create this alternative culture and wall it off and like define ourselves by our difference to mainstream culture, and then to like harshly resist any integration into mainstream culture is very unhealthy. It means that you can never grow, you can never move past how we started. And I would love for gaming to be like watching TV or watching movies, something everybody does. something where there's a broad range of genres within the medium, a bunch of different ways to engage with it. But the hardcore gaming scene is about like only legitimizing one kind of gaming, or a subset of what gaming can be, to like keep it from being different from how it is. And a lot of that is tied into race and gender, but a lot of it is also just like, hating on casuals, hating on story games, hating on games that are technically, in their view, not a game. It's a lot like the sort of gatekeeping in genre fiction that, some science fiction writers will get really mad about a science fiction writer who writes something that's not technically science fiction, and then they'll again get mad about a mainstream writer writing something that is science fiction, but they didn't pay their dues in the genre. They didn't hang out with us at the conventions. They're not part of our clique, our tribe, and so they're not allowed to do this thing that we do. And that's a very negative attitude. It's an attitude that's always going to limit who we are and what we do.
And I really do think that attitude is why we're at the point that we are with GamerGate. And well, first of all, I don't want to talk as if everybody understands or is familiar with GamerGate. So I know, Arthur, that you've written a lot about GamerGate.
Yeah, I'm not done.
You've actually, unfortunately, been a target of GamerGate.
Collabro, that's what I do.
Which is, I'm very sure that there are people that are mistaking you for another writer simply because you're an Asian man.
I never even met him until this thing happened, but yeah, they think we look alike, and so they think I am him, which is unfortunate because he said some things on the internet when he was a teenager, and now everyone's telling me, like, I'm a racist and a Nazi for things this guy said, that this guy said when he was like 15 years old, and yeah. But that's GamerGate for you. It's the nature of an internet mob, so.
I guess to give us a background on GamerGate, it started with what was called the Zoe Post, which was this kind of rambling, disjointed account of a failed relationship that was written by a female game developer's ex. It was like this 1,000-word blog post that basically was calling into question her sexual history, calling her a bad person, and while that initial post was deleted, it was reposted on a lot of different forums and suddenly...
Was it deleted? I don't think it was ever actually deleted. It's still up.
Well, I know it was posted onto one forum and deleted from that forum, but on his website, it's still there. But the post was deleted from the website. And it kind of became, it was like dropping blood in a pool of piranhas, and it broke into a frenzy of just threats and accusations, and now it's become the rallying cry wasn't just it's about ethics in games and ethics in gaming journalism, but now they're trying to say it's a consumer revolution, which doesn't ring too true to me because for starters, why are all the targets for GamerGate a lot of women who aren't developers at major studios that have the most clout, that control the industry? It's indie developers, and it's people that write on gaming websites, and a glaring amount of women who are having their sexual histories put into question. And it really, for me, I just feel like this is like the dying grasp of an identity that was sold to young men because they wanted people to buy Xboxes and Mountain Dew. And this was the horrific thing that erupted from that. Is anybody else having a really tough time trying to explain to people outside of the hobby what the hell is going on?
It's hard, especially because if you do it in a public forum like Twitter, where people immediately demand that you address each and every one of the points, the issues, even though those are clearly so unrelated to each other. It's like totally random things pulled from random points in time. It's like arguing with a Tea Party conspiracy theorist. It's like arguing about Benghazi. You think you're just arguing about one terrorist attack that happened in Benghazi, and suddenly you're all talking about the White House press corps, and you're talking about the CIA, and But what I would say Gamergate is about is they're using the word corruption, but they're not using it right. If you were talking about corruption in the normal sense of an industry, you'd be looking to where all the money is. You'd be looking to, the biggest, richest players and how they're influencing media coverage to their benefit, which is obviously happening in games journalism. But they're not actually against that. When they say corruption, what they're saying is they're delegitimizing people having their own point of view, political or ethical point of view, and putting it in the narrative. They'd rather the narrative be uncontaminated by basically what they call social justice warrior, SJW, by people who care about race and sex and political issues in gaming. And it's not unusual. This is the Tea Party narrative about the mainstream media. You think you're talking about one thing, and all of a sudden it's about how the whole media is biased and that they are putting issues into, say, history textbooks, into TV shows, into the news that shouldn't be there, that feminism is taking over everything, that anti-racism is taking over everything. It ties into a lot of right-wing smears against the art world. If something isn't commercially successful, but it's being quote-unquote pushed on us. So a lot of it is like when people develop this paranoia about NEA grants, right, National Endowments for the Arts grants, and saying this painting isn't objectively good. Why was money spent to push this painting on us? Why was money being spent to push theater on us? And what they're basically saying is indie games that make almost no money, but that are getting quote-unquote pushed in the press because the press thinks there's something valuable about them, they're delegitimizing that. They're saying, get rid of this. The games journalism world should only be a sort of press release engine for the big publishers, that they should be telling us what we want to hear, giving us the commercials that we want to hear for the big games, and restricting their coverage to just what the hardcore gamer wants, which is how great are the graphics, how great is the physics engine, how realistic is the blood spatter. But if you dare, as a journalist, inject your own personal values or opinion, if you dare say, like, this game that I know most people don't like, I'm going to push it because I think it's a good game, or this thing that you do like, I'm going to criticize it because I think it's problematic, morally or politically, they call that corruption. They want to basically silence the voices of people in journalism, using their voice in their platform in gaming to affect gaming. They think that's wrong. And to me, that's the fairest possible description I can give of, like, that's me not projecting onto them. That's me trying to say what they really think. And to me, it still sounds awful. I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like a dystopia. That sounds like the worst thing that gaming journalism could be, is to just be a sort of mouthpiece for the existing market and the existing publishers to just kind of sell incremental technical improvements in games,
You bring up a lot of good points, especially the one about how do you review a game and how do you speak about a game and discuss games without injecting how that game makes you feel. And I know some of us have all worked and written or spoken about games. It's very hard to describe a game without saying how it makes you feel. And I do really want to talk about, when we talk about games, are we really talking about the product of a game or the experience of playing a game?
It really depends on the person playing it. We have a lot of people, a good example is for BioShock Infinite. It got a lot of praise, and it's one of the best games ever made. And then when we had critics of color review it after and analyze it, this game is racist in the way it treats people of color specifically. And for Gamergate, they really truly don't even like games, in the sense where they don't want them to progress whatsoever as a medium. They want them to stay for the heterosexual cisgender white dude.
Tanya, any thoughts?
for someone who games, especially for me, games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age series, those games gave me a lot of feelings because I could narrate my story versus something like, a first-person shooter where, oh gee, I get to go around and kill people. That really is not fun. I can't talk about these games and leave emotion out of it. Yes, I can talk technically about, are the game mechanics flawed? Are they great game mechanics? Is it fun to play? But you can't have a review and have it be totally objective. Because for me, if I like a game, there's going to have to be some connection. And that's me. Some people may be able to be totally, objective and technical and just say, hey, you will love this game, you'll get X number of hours playing out of it. But if I can't feel something, some kind of empathy or immerse myself in the story, I'm not going to feel like I got anything out of that game.
It's funny, when I talk about games to people, I remove my own emotion, but I put theirs in. So sometimes when I talk about a game, I'll honestly admit, because I think game development's in kind of a rhythm. So a third-person shooter will control and feel like another third-person shooter. However, whatever the game is about will dictate what you care about. So, like, for instance, a third-person shooter where you murder everything, you go, blah. But if it's Transformers, then you go, oh, I like Transformers. I could murder all of those robots. So I leave it up to you. I tend to take myself out of it, but I acknowledge that game development is kind of becoming homogenous, and it's a good thing because they can focus on refining other aspects of the experience. But I tend to leave my own emotions out of it and and let other people fill in the blanks. So I'll say a game is a third-person shooter. However, if you enjoy this, you may enjoy it, and I keep myself on the other side of the wall, ironically.
I actually remember I used to write for my college newspaper, and we did this column that was about like bargain gaming. So any game that was under $20, we'd write about it. And I wrote about Def Jam Fight for New York, and I said it was a fun game, it was a great experience. But I had one small paragraph where I said the game also deeply insults me because there's a mechanic where women fight for the hero, and you can't make the hero a woman, and the hero cannot be gay because only women fight for him. But if in the interaction, if you lose and get a bad girlfriend, her name is Shaniqua. She's a black woman with a wide nose and broad features and dark skin. And, she's the only one that has pores and stretch marks. And while I was playing the game, it's one of the few games where I just kind of stopped and I kind of felt like crying. I was like, out of all the people in this game, I look like Shaniqua. I don't look like the top girlfriend, the prize you could win, literally, was Carmen Electra, who looked like a doll because women aren't allowed to have pores, and everybody has to have crazy boob mechanics where their tits are up to here even when they're fighting. And I got a lot of flack for it. People were upset. They're like, oh, why are you interjecting yourself in this review? But I felt like, you know what, if I'm going to recommend this game based on the fun mechanics, I also want to warn everybody else who looks more like Shaniqua than Carmen Electra that you might come out feeling some type of way if you play that game. And for me, I kind of feel like that's the way it's supposed to be, because if you're buying a full-price game, I don't want to pay $60 or $70 to feel crap about myself.
I was going to say that it's funny that that's considered interjecting yourself to something that's just objectively racist. I hate the fact that you're getting pinned to the wall for that. You're like, that's racist, and all of a sudden it's your opinion of it. It's not. That's a problem. That's a genuine issue. Like it's just terrible that you have to get reamed out for just pointing out a problem that is objectively an issue. Because one black woman is a terrible person in this game. That's a thing, guys.
Well, I mean, there were other black women in that game, but they were like famous, or basically they were good. Like, she was the booby prize. Like, if you were a loser, if you lost fights and the game was telling you were of less value, the woman that you were home with is big nose, thick lipped Shaniqua. I could sit and rattle off a long list of games that made me feel some type of way. So.
Oh, I have feelings too because I'm a little late to the game when it comes to Mass Effect, so I finished 2 and 3. And if you're playing a female shepherd and romance Jacob, the only black dude on your crew, like first you got the, dad went off and did his thing and left the family trope. But then if you make it to 3 and he survives and you come across him, not only has he left you, he has gone and knocked up somebody else and it's just like all nonchalant about it, like, we're cool, right?
Yeah.
It's okay that I went and like knocked this chick up and kind of forgot about the fact that you were under house arrest and it's not your fault you couldn't leave.
I don't understand. How did they manage to get that Maury Povich bullshit into outer space? Like, I'm just doing We're talking about Mass Effect 3. I remember that distinctly. I was like, me and my friend called me because I didn't have him call me. He said, "You believe this shit?" Jacob has knocked up some other one. He cheated on the greatest warrior in the universe. The black knocked up some other woman while cheating on the greatest warrior in the universe. She wasn't even gone. She was just in minimum security prison.
Right. It was like she's under house arrest. She could have came and found you. Could have came and seen her or something. And he has no remorse. Like, we're cool, right? But if you're the Citadel DLC, you can have your moment of, no, we're not cool, dude.
So, I'm black, I can't control myself.
Right. That's like, why did you do that?
Do you feel like if you read a review that like actually examined that, would that have made you less likely to purchase or play the game?
No, because I mean that's the thing with Mass Effect. I know it's there, and there's a lot of games on my shelf where if I knew about some of the content, I wouldn't have any games right now. Because there's so many. Like, I could probably pick any game off the shelf and go, here's this problematic part, here's this problematic plot point, here's this character. I mean, the industry is not perfect, but I had to kind of live blog this and go, why didn't you all tell me about this, those of you that have finished the game? And they're like, no, you had to discover it for yourself. I'm like, I hate all of you for not warning me about this, because this was not okay.
Right.
What's funny is I feel like I guess it's my earlier point. I feel like this is just other people's lives, and it's not something you can really, like, it's not. I don't even know if it's like a feeling anymore. Like when I played Sleeping Dogs, right? I think it's a action game, and I literally saw it, and I said, "Hold on." Somebody said to me, "Check out this game." I said, "Hold on. I think this might be racist. I need to find a Chinese person. Let me ask them if this is legit. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a black dude from Brooklyn. They're all just kicking and driving to me." But I'm like, I need to know what's going on from someone else's perspective. So I had to wait, and I wanted to read some reviews, and not many people mentioned it, and I was, it just seemed like a thing. But this is not just feelings. This is other people's lives. Just because it's not yours doesn't mean it's not someone else's. It's important that we, consider this just as a fact of the game. Some games are just racist. Those in Sleeping Dogs, they could all have been speaking broken comedians' impressions of Chinese English. That's not cool. And you need to acknowledge that is wrong. They're all facts. It's just strange. There's so much infighting about that. It's wrong. Terrible.
I mean, what I'd say is, and this is a little inside baseball because I've been talking about it so much, but it's gotten kind of polarized, and so there's kind of like this caricature going around. Like some people are saying, oh, the SJW is what they want, are reviews that are just like your personal feelings. Like, I played the game for 5 minutes, and I was overcome with, emotion, and let me talk about my life. And the other side is, the stereotype is, oh, you just want a strict line-by-line, these are graphics 8 out of 10, controls 7 out of 10, And I think there's a very broad continuum in between those extremes. And I would say that, yes, I acknowledge that as someone who would, in theory, be writing for people who play a lot of video games, I would write about what a gamer would likely think about the game, comparing it to other games in the genre, comparing it to other games they would have played. And I talk about it differently than if I were talking about, strictly a cultural review or talking about it to someone who didn't really play games or wanted to know what I felt about it. So yeah, there's a continuum there, but you know, your experience is your experience. You can't change that. Everything you experience about the game is subjective. And I kind of feel like what the GamerGate thing about objective reviews is doing is delegitimizing specific emotions and not acknowledging that the whole thing at the end of the day is emotional. That if a game is fun, that's an emotion. If I feel like the controls in this game are so smooth and so tight and intuitive, that's, again, an emotion. It might be intuitive for me. It might be completely unintuitive for somebody else. If the game's frustrating for me, that's an emotion. It might be a good kind of frustrating for one person, and for me it's just, you know, obnoxiously frustrating. That's all emotion, and it's the same emotion as if I see something, you know, horrifically racist that makes me want to cry, or something that just, you know, doesn't make me want to cry, but makes me want to go, ugh, you know. Those are also emotions, and I almost feel like it's specifically negative emotions that make me feel bad. It's not the subject matter. It's just the criticism that gets gamer-gators upset. Because if you flip it around, positive emotions, it's not like if I said this game's setting is so awesome and fun and interesting, people would say, oh, you're not allowed to talk about that. You're only supposed to talk about the mechanics. You can't give the game points for having an awesome setting, you know. But they only get mad if I take points away. If I said I love Bayonetta both because of the gameplay and because I think she's super hot and sexy and I love looking at her and I love the design of her, they'd say great. If I say I love the mechanics but the design makes me feel bad and turns me off, all of a sudden I'm not allowed to talk about it. You know, it's a very one-sided. Anything that makes them feel bad is what they reject, and that's the problem. Is that people who are kind of harshing their buzz get systematically silenced, get like told they can't talk, and that's what makes it so tough to feel bad about things that other people don't feel bad about, and to like consistently feel bad about it because it keeps happening in games over and over again over like decades, and you know, feeling like you can't speak up, you know.
Yeah, and I know for some people there's more to a game than just the mechanics. Like, I look at the marketing, I look at how that company has treated gamers, or not gamers, but players in the past. One franchise I will never ever buy a game from before it launched is Homefront, because I used to work in K-Town in Manhattan, and right where there's a Korean Cultural Center, they're putting up all these ads that had the North Korean flag with the like blood splatter, or some like effect that looked like it was burning, and it just kind of seems like you're putting these ads up on purpose next to a cultural center of people who have lost family members that they'll never get to see again because they're, you know, victimized by a regime that they have no power against, and they're using that for fear mongering. And the fact that they were using the Korean American community to sell the game to, you know, people on the outside, it just felt like a slap in the face. So I don't care if this had the best graphics, the best mechanics, the most nuanced gameplay experience. Quite frankly, that game would give me an orgasm as soon as I put it in my Xbox. I was not going to play that game.
Also, I'd like to issue I like to say, whatever game can be based around America being invaded by another country and not be racist deserves to win a Nobel Prize. Like, any game that can pull that off is the greatest game we'll all ever play and the greatest experience we'll ever have. Once America gets taken over by anybody, it's all racism for the next 12 hours. You guys all know. Okay, otherwise, the same.
That can be our game project, since we keep getting the go make your own game. Fine, I'll find some talented people and we'll make that game.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another thing I do really want to talk about, like, because we've been talking about everything that annoys us and scares us and really pisses us off about this movement, GamerGate. But I really want to talk about what people have been doing in the wake of it to kind of combat it or talk against it. And of course, there was Stop GamerGate 2014. So please tell us how that came about.
I did a thing, and I made a hashtag that all of you maybe have seen. I was away for Twitter maybe from September till October, I was getting GamerGaters bothering me and harassment. So I was like, why not take a break? I took one for Far Cry 4, and that was another game where I said something about the box art, and there was vitriol and hatred and death for that as well. And I made it so we could, as an industry, talk about the issues for queer folk or trans folk, transgender folk, or for people of color in the industry and women in the industry, and for what's happening and how Gamergate is bothering, specifically targeting women, such as Felicia Day. I recently heard about that. I haven't read much into it, and Zoe Quinn, and Anita Sarkeesian, and Brianna Wu, and their lives are at risk, and they're having to leave their homes. Their own homes aren't even safe whatsoever, so I didn't think it would lift off whatsoever, really, but it did, and a lot of people said it gave them hope, and it gave them, there was a way to talk about the stuff that they felt comfortable, and they felt less scared, they told me. And they said, I had a few people say, I'm a queer writer who wants to go into game journalism, and your hashtag meant so much to me that you made it.
It's unfortunate that people kind of took the hashtag and then use it as a way to target people. Because I noticed as soon as the Stop Gamergate 2014 tags started happening, there were like the anti-taggers who were with Not Your Shield, which is inherently racist and sexist. Not Your Shield is highly problematic. And I know, Arthur, you've had your time talking about Not Your Shield.
Yeah. I was trolling, okay, when I said I think Not Your Shield is the best thing I've ever done, because, my wedding was also pretty good. When I proposed to my wife, that's pretty good, too. But, no, Tweet Like Not Your Shield was a thing I did to make fun of Not Your Shield, and it's because Gamergate has been really good at being very aggressive about controlling the conversation, and one of the things they specifically said they wanted to do was to turn the language of their critics against itself. And so they are very quick to use the language of victimization bullying to say that because gamers or nerds were at some point bullied in the past, that means anyone who criticizes nerds is now a bully, like the bullies in high school, even though the vast majority of this criticism is coming from inside the nerd community from other nerds. And so, but suddenly we've all been recast as the bullies, as the rich kids, the popular kids, as ridiculous as that might be. And one of the other tactics was to say, well, and this is the whitewashing tactic. It's like saying only white people cared about the name of the Washington Redskins. It's like saying only white people, back in civil rights, people said, oh, it's white agitators. Real black people don't care. This is being caused by some external force. Just like people would say, like, about any controversy, this is an external force causing it. So they got a bunch of people of color and women and people of other oppressed groups to start posting hashtag Not Your Shield, basically saying this issue is about rich white privileged journalists and game developers protecting themselves. There's no real issues with racism and sexism in gaming. They're using us as shields, so we're going to hashtag Not Your Shield. Ironically, shielding the people who were doing some really racist and sexist things by persecuting, certain journalists and developers. And so one of the things about it, though, is that when you try to use the language of your critics, usually it's hard because you don't actually share their beliefs, so you use it wrong. And a lot of times it was like, men of color saying, oh, well, I'm oppressed, therefore you can't criticize me for attacking a woman. And he's saying, when was that ever the rule? And I started doing Tweet Like Not Your Shield. Hi, I'm a man of color, so I can't be a misogynist. Hi, I'm a woman, and that means I'm a white woman, and that means I can't be racist. Hi, I'm a gay man, and that means I'm allowed to be as misogynistic as I want. And Milo Yiannopoulos, who's their favorite journalist from Breitbart, has a long history of slut-shaming women who dare criticize him with no apology for it whatsoever. and just stuff like that. And the funny thing is, it's such a knee-jerk movement that they immediately said, "Oh, Arthur Chu's being a racist." And you know, one guy posted blackface images, which he had lying around. I don't know why, but he posted blackface images in the tag saying, "What you're doing is equivalent to blackface." And now people are, link the tag and say, "Look, Arthur Chu has blackface images on quote unquote his tag, therefore he's a racist." And this is the level of discourse that you get from GamerGate. This is what you can expect. And yeah, I don't want to be the only one talking about it, but it really upsets me on a basic level, because what I hate is this tokenism thing where as long as you can trot out one person of color who says, "I'm not offended," and there's a million reasons for a person of color to say, "I'm not offended." I'm not going to go and say everybody's got internalized racism, even though everybody does have some degree of internalized racism. Maybe they don't know about the issue. Maybe they don't care about the issue. Maybe they understand the issue completely differently. Maybe they have legitimate reasons to understand it differently. But it doesn't mean that I can't talk about it just because so-and-so doesn't care about it. It doesn't mean that to then criticize, if I were to say I'm not offended by something, criticizing it is not an attack on my Asianness, because my Asianness is not a trump card that makes me automatically right, And the bizarre thing is, this is what they accuse me of saying, which I don't believe, but then they unironically use that, the idea of shielding, using your identity to say you can't be wrong, And it's really, really messed up.
No.
And I actually said, not your shield is the worst part of GamerGate. It's the worst thing. It's the part where you shut down criticism of a football team's name because, well, I know someone who says he's Native American, he doesn't care. You shut down criticism of this or that because I know someone who's a woman and they don't care. It's the worst argument that you can make against any kind of cultural criticism, and yet they treat it as a sacred argument,
I also noticed it was kind of like a weaponized thing, because I really want Tanya to talk about I need diverse games and why I need diverse games, because I saw this tag kind of happen independent of GamerGate and then being attacked by GamerGate and not your shield. So please, Tanya, talk about how this came about.
So I literally was angry about games at 6 in the morning and started tweeting about how I'm tired of the same scruffy white dude protagonist. And believe it or not, GamerGate was nowhere on my mind. I'd forgotten about them. However, within a few hours, it started to trend. And a friend of mine who actually started Solidarities for White Women hashtag called me and said, you need to go get some block bots because your tag is trending. So before I left work, GamerGators tried to glom onto the tag, and it just went crazy from, it's a divide and conquer tactic, it's just more SJWBS, and I wasn't thinking about them. So I did go through some of the tags and just decided I have limited energy, and I didn't expect this to take off like this. And if I let them drain what energy I do have, it's not going to go anywhere, because once it didn't die down for a couple days, I was like, okay, maybe something's going on. Maybe we can keep going. But it got ridiculous. The most fallacious thing I saw was that I need diverse games is the problem with diversity in gaming. And there's just a mishmash of images that had zero to do with gaming, like nothing. It was a bunch of like anime panty shots claiming that, that's being taken away from us because of the SJW agenda, when nobody's thinking about them like that. So it got attention, it trended, and one of my friends, Dragon Rain on Twitter and Tumblr, who is now helping me manage the Tumblr and the Twitter and the email, we just kind of ran with it, and it's become a thing, and we've got people globally wanting to do game jams and collaborate and do articles. Charles Tan wrote an article, and he said that I created it because of GamerGate, so I actually reached out and said, hey, that's not the case. And we wound up chatting, and he interviewed me, and there's been a lot of great write-ups independent of anything I've done except throw the tag out there, and it's been amazing. There's an irony in going, well, hashtag activism doesn't mean anything, but then doing everything in your power to use that tag for your own methods. And it's just some things where I just couldn't even look at it because it was just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. I was tweeting on the I Need Diverse Games, and I got not like a shouting match, but basically somebody was like, well, people aren't going to make games with non-white people if black people keep on complaining. Which, yeah, 'cause they're basically saying that there's poor representation in games because non-white people, women, and non-straight people complain about the little representation we do have in games, which is mind-numbingly stupid. That's just the most intellectually lazy.
Well, what's intellectually lazy is to basically come into any thread or any discussion and go, don't be lazy, make your own games. And I kind of had a rant of it takes time, it takes talent, it takes skills that, one individual person can't just run out and make a game on their own. I am not good at coding. I've tried it, I'm not good at it. And there may be someone else who's good at coding, but they can't draw. They can't script. It's not an honest answer to turn around and go, well, just make your own. It's easier to go start a blog and review games the way you want to see them reviewed than it is for me to assemble a team of people, give their time and talent, and hope they'll pull out a game than to just keep up that dishonest discourse. And I was actually really motivated by Monver Ayer's GDC talk. I was lucky enough to be there thanks to a friend who wants to get into the industry. She took me with her as support, and we were able to go to a lot of the talks and to be in that room and hear him talk about it. And this is a guy in the industry who is a man of color and can't even see himself represented in the game. So, that's one of the reasons why at this point now I'm just angry. Now I'm gonna make sure that this does not die out. And all the people that are tweeting and keeping it going and writing blog posts, it's I don't know how it turned into a movement. I'm not sure movement's the right word, but it just was the right hashtag at the right time and took off, and I'm glad it did.
Yeah, and I know that your site is actually kind of putting the money where the mouth is, because raising money to help fund diverse games and also putting the spotlight on diverse games. And I really feel like that's the best thing that somebody can do. It's a direct action that helps. So just.
Well, and it's funny. Today we actually passed 5,000 followers on the Tumblr blog. Yeah, I saw it and I just kind of like backpedaled away from the computer, like, oh my god, how did this happen in like a week and a half? But we're running a Teespring campaign, and the money that is raised, hopefully we meet our goal, will go to Vampire 20 for the deluxe edition they're putting together on Kickstarter.
Oh, sweet.
And the artist who donated her time and talent for our new banner image gave me the okay to put that image on merchandise. So we're going to look for another project to fund. So the next round of Teespring will be featuring that image. So with 5,000 followers on Tumblr, hopefully we can, keep this going and get people collaborating and talking to each other. So yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people do feel that we need diverse games. We're shelling out the money for it. So I think in our escapist fantasies, we exist, and I don't think that takes away the escapist fantasies of other people, unless you're a complete racist who wants to live in all white everything. And in that case, you can make your own game. Huh?
Well, they do. It's called medieval fantasy, and dragons are more real than people of color.
Yeah.
I know we don't have that much time, but I guess I wanted to ask everybody, is there one game that you would love to see, and what would be like the dream game project for you?
I would love to make a game out of Nora Jemison's novels,
Hmm.
the 100,000 Kingdom series, and Blood Moon and Killing Moon books, because they're just amazing. I would love, love, love to see a story-driven game based off of the books. characters of color that are not stereotypes. I mean, Nora Jemisin is a woman of color, but her worlds are just so amazing, and to see that brought to life in a game would be a dream come true.
I guess I would say my dream would be to have a game where you get to create your character, but it still is culturally competent. Because I've always been told that, oh, diversity isn't a problem because you can make your own character. But when I make my own character and that character moves around the world and everybody socializes with that character with the assumption that my character is a white male of class, then the character creation is just a skin for a white male character. And it's not really diverse. No. Aaron?
I like to keep this within reason, so I'd like to see a reasonable, like say a Splinter Cell type game where one dude is the best, but like another country's dude being the best, like a Nigerian super agent or a Chinese super agent or like someone from Norway or someone that's not American and just look at another country's culture and how they handle their military, because we got to keep it within reason. If you have a dream project, you still got to get it over. So you still got to have. You still gotta have the dude, the super white man, so super dude. So I just want to see him not be American just once. That's all.
So you want the impossible white man fantasy as long as you take away the American white man.
I have said many times the only impossible non-white man that I've ever seen in my life is Will Smith in Bad Boys 2. Ever. And I defy any of you to find any other instance of an impossible white man not being white with that movie. And I would prefer to see, that would be my dream game, an impossible white man video game like Uncharted, but the dude is just like Japanese or something like that. That's it. Just make him something. I just want to just explore someone else's culture and what they consider a super dude. That's it. Keep it simple.
Okay, Arthur?
What I'd like to see. I like so much about Papers, Please and Cart Life, but I think you could go further. So I'm gonna drift away from race and sex, and I'm gonna talk about class. I would love to see a game that's just about working, and I know there's like simulator games out there that are like that, but not just like the nuts and bolts of driving a truck or managing a business, not something like that, but just like a life simulator that feels like you're getting good at something, and that thing is not shooting people with a gun. Because I've done a lot of that, and I've done a lot of leading armies, and I've done a lot of, launching airstrikes, and I've done a lot of everything that you can do in the context of war has been very well explored in games. But there's very rich lives that other people lead that do not involve the death of other people, and we could explore that. We could gamify that. And it's almost like industry wisdom that you can't. That, anything that's not killing people isn't fun, and you have to kind of abstract it away. Even conversation has to be abstracted. And I kind of want to see something that's about, making it fun to do something like, the life of driving a truck, which is not always fun, but then being a soldier isn't always fun. But finding the fun in it, that sounds crazy, but I think it's something to explore. In Europe, apparently, they're really into simulators, and Americans, if it's not like an action, kind of shy away from it, So.
And Veerender?
I don't have one well-written C character in video games whatsoever, and I would absolutely like and love. There was a recent concept art that was shown to me with a Sikh spy with a great turban and a snazzy suit, and it's all matching, and I would absolutely love that. Or even, I'd love the Assassin's Creed franchise to one day do a Sikh assassin in terms of doing some sort of stealth or doing some sort of open world game where, like The Walking Dead Season 1, Blackness exists in that world. In that scene where Kenny says, "Oh, I thought you could pick this lock because, you're urban." And I'd like a game that had a Sikh character where, well, when I go out or anything, people stare and look at me, so there would have to be Sikhness in that game, and I really like that. Or even just one well-written supporting Sikh character whatsoever. But I'd like games to have more options for race or religion. Turban customization is easier to do than flowing hair, so I would love that too.
Awesome. Hopefully, hearing our dream projects will inspire somebody to start working on their dream project. And I think that is why people need diversity in gaming, because we are all people and we're all interacting. And if we're all going to use this medium, it should be built with all of us in mind. So I just wanted to thank all of our panelists and guests for joining us. Aaron Rand Freeman from This Week in Blackness. Thank you. Arthur Chu, I hope you join us again. You're great. Thank you, Veerender, for making your amazing hashtag. And I hope everybody checks out Tanya's Tumblr and site and support her Teespring campaign so we can fund those diverse games. So for the Nerds of Color, thank you for listening and watching the Hard NOC Life. Check us out on nerdsofcolor.org. Thank you and good night.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard NOC Life, comics, movies, and TV, yo. Pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this. This is the Hard NOC Life, but not the chica kind. More like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share their interests together with a similar kind. When they said John Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments, and the lectures. Fanboys, professional artists, and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC.